Scene 1. Establishing isolation and routine. Approx. 500 words. I woke up to the sound of wind pushing against the cabin walls and the faint creak of the roof settling above me. It took a second before I remembered what day it was. 77. Not that birthdays mean much anymore. My name's Miles Braddock. I'm 77 years old. I live alone in a cedar log cabin I built myself back in '83, up in the hills outside Florence, Montana. Nearest neighbor's about a mile down the slope, and I like it that way. The stove popped as I poured water into the old kettle. Coffee first. Always coffee first. It was one of the last routines I kept since Carol passed. That was 5 years ago this spring, but it still feels like yesterday. I still catch myself reaching across the bed some mornings, thinking she's just in the bathroom brushing her teeth. But that side's been cold for years now. Once the kettle whistled, I poured the hot water over the grounds and let it steep in the press. While it brewed, I set 2 mugs on the table, out of habit more than anything. Hers had a faded painting of a red fox on it. Mine just says U.S. Forest Service, retired. She bought it for me when I retired from Ranger service in 2003. I sat down, sipped my coffee slowly, and opened the pill organizer Carol insisted I use before she died. Back then I thought it was unnecessary. Hell, I'd made it through Vietnam with nothing but duct tape and iodine. But now, I fill it every Sunday like she used to. One little ritual I won't let go. Today's pills, 2 for the heart, 1 for blood sugar, and 1 that claims to help memory, but I can never remember what it's called. I had just finished my toast, dry, no butter, when the phone rang. The landline. No one calls the landline unless it's bad news or a telemarketer. I picked it up out of reflex. Dad. Amanda. Her voice was too bright, too polished. "Hey, sweetheart," I said, surprised. "Everything all right?" "Of course, just wanted to call and say happy birthday." 77, wow, you're amazing. There was a rustling on her end, and then Jason's voice cut in. "Hey, old man, happy birthday." I smiled despite myself. Well, look at that. Both my kids remembered. Jason let out a laugh that sounded a bit too forced. "We were actually thinking of coming by today. Bring lunch, hang out." "That cool." I paused. That hadn't happened in years, not together anyway. Amanda jumped back in. "We'll be there by 2. We've got a surprise." Something in her tone made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Too cheerful, too rehearsed. I forced a chuckle. "You sure you're not mistaking me for someone else's dad?" Amanda laughed politely. "We'll see you soon." After I hung up, I stood there staring at the phone. Something was off. They hadn't visited together since Carol's funeral, and even then, they were in a hurry to leave. Still, I set out 3 chairs on the porch. Might as well pretend this is just a family visit. But I had a feeling it wasn't. Scene 2. Disguised celebration and suspicion. Approx. 600 words. The crunch of tires on gravel pulled me off the porch swing around 1:30. I shaded my eyes from the sun and spotted Amanda's white Lexus SUV easing up the drive like it didn't belong in the woods, which it didn't. It looked more suited to a hospital parking garage or a Whole Foods lot. She parked a good 20 feet from the house, like dust might scratch the paint. A few seconds later, Jason's rusty blue pickup pulled in behind her, backfiring once like a warning shot. The thing looked worse than it had 10 years ago, somehow still holding itself together with dents, duct tape, and resentment. I walked out to meet them as Amanda stepped out in heels. Heels. Up here? "Dad!" She chirped, throwing her arms around me before I could react. Her perfume hit me in the face. Floral, expensive, and too much. "Happy birthday," she said, pulling back and adjusting her sunglasses. Her husband Troy came around from the passenger side, smiling in that performative doctor way. "Miles," he said, extending a manicured hand, "looking great for 77. I muttered, shaking it briefly. Jason slammed his door and staggered a bit as he stepped forward. "Hey, old man," he grinned, unshaven and sweating through his flannel. "You make it to another one." "Apparently," I said. "Barely." He reeked, booze and gasoline, maybe some sweat layered in for good measure. I raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Amanda popped the back of the SUV. "We brought barbecue. From that place off the highway. Big Bear Smokehouse or something? Oh, and cake. Chocolate. Chocolate. They both knew I was diabetic. I hadn't touched cake in 5 years. Carol used to make me little almond cookies instead. These two couldn't be bothered to ask. Inside, they laid it all out on the counter like it was a spread for a 4th of July picnic. Store-bought coleslaw, ribs in greasy foam containers, a plastic sheet cake with Happy 77th Dad, scrawled in red icing. I poured myself a glass of water and watched them swarm the kitchen like they owned the place. We ate on the porch, or rather, they ate. Jason tore through ribs like he hadn't eaten in days. Amanda picked at her salad. Troy kept checking his watch. Conversation bounced from Amanda's latest real estate seminar to Jason's new freelance gig, which I suspected meant delivering scrap metal to junkyards in exchange for cash and beer. I just nodded where appropriate and let them talk. Then, out of nowhere, Amanda cleared her throat. "Dad, we wanted to talk to you about something kind of important." I set my glass down. "Go ahead." She folded her hands in her lap like she was about to deliver bad news to a patient. "We've been worried about you. Out here all alone, no real support. It's not safe." I stared at her. "Been out here 40 years, never needed support." "I know," she said quickly, "but you're not getting any younger. And we've found this amazing veterans residence, top-notch really. You'd have meals, medical care, people to talk to." Troy chimed in. "And a beautiful garden, Miles. They even have woodworking classes." Jason smirked. "Hell, they got a billiards room and free Wi-Fi. What else you need?" I kept my face blank. "And who brought this up first? Amanda or Troy?" Amanda gave a tight smile. "It doesn't matter. We just care about you." "Right," I said, leaning back in my chair. Jason took a swig of sweet tea and muttered, "Hell, it's not like he's even using half this land. Could do something with it." Amanda elbowed him. "Too late." I looked at her. "Do something with it." She stammered. "He just meant, if you decided to move, we could help. You know, talk to someone about it. A real estate agent or—" "There it is," I said quietly. Silence. I stood up, slow and deliberate. "You came out here on my birthday with cake I can't eat, and a plan to move me out of my home." "No, that's not—" Amanda started. Troy reached for damage control. "We just thought maybe it was time to start thinking ahead." "I've been thinking ahead since before you were born," I said. Jason looked away. Amanda bit her lip. I picked up my glass, stepped back inside, and shut the screen door behind me. Let the wind carry the rest of that awkward silence away. They didn't know it yet, but they'd already lost. Scene 3. Refusal and hidden wealth. Approx. 550 words. They left around 5, Troy awkwardly pulling Amanda toward the SUV, while Jason muttered something about grabbing a beer on the way back. No hugs, no goodbye photo. Just a hollow, "We'll talk soon," that I didn't believe for a second. Once the taillights disappeared down the slope, I stood in the quiet yard, hands on my hips, and let the air settle. A breeze rustled the pine needles overhead. The place felt like it was exhaling with me. I walked back inside and shut the door behind me. Didn't bother with the cake, didn't even clear the plates. Instead, I went to the far wall of the cabin, the part Carol always joked was suspiciously too tidy, and knelt next to the old bookshelf. After a moment of feeling along the edges, I popped out the baseboard panel and slid the shelf forward on its hidden rail. Beneath it was a small square of polished pine, slightly darker than the rest of the floor. I pried it up gently. Beneath the floorboards was a steel lockbox and a canvas-wrapped folder, the kind you only take out when you know trouble's coming. I carried both to the table and set them down with care. The lockbox opened with a key I always wore on a chain under my shirt, even now. Inside were the original deeds to this cabin, surveyor maps of the land going back decades, old timber rights agreements, and most importantly, a thick packet labeled Braddock Timber Holdings, LLC. Carol and I had started the trust back in '92. Quietly. Quiet enough that not even the kids ever asked what the extra mailbox at the P.O. box was for. Over the years, we'd acquired slivers of land up and down the valley. A patch of birch grove here, a logging trail there. The trust held nearly 800 acres by now. Most of it forest, untouched. A few parcels rented to local ranchers or used for conservation grants. All of it paid off. The folder held bank statements, stock certificates, and a recent valuation report from a friend of mine at the university. A cool figure. $7.4 million. To Amanda and Jason, I was an old man in a dusty cabin with a couple acres and a broken satellite dish. That was the role I let them believe. It kept things simple. I took a deep breath and picked up the phone. "Rafe Garrison," said the familiar voice on the other end. "Happy late birthday, old friend," I said. "Miles." He chuckled. "How's the mountain treating you?" I leaned back in my chair. "Colder than usual, but the vultures came early this year." "Ah," Rafe said, his tone changing. "The kids. They want me gone." Pushed a brochure for a place called Eagle Rock Estates. Sounded like a hotel with nurses. Subtle. About as subtle as Jason slipping up and mentioning a real estate agent before they even got through the ribs. Rafe grunted. "You want me to move forward?" I looked out the window. The sun was starting to set behind the ridge Carol used to call her crown. It lit the pines gold. "Yeah," I said. "It's time to activate Plan C." There was a pause. Then Rafe said, "You sure?" "They see land value," I murmured. "Carol and I built a legacy." "They'll regret this," he said. "I don't want them to regret it," I replied. "I want them to learn from it." We ended the call. I slid everything back into the box and returned it to the floor. I wasn't angry, not exactly. Just tired of pretending I didn't see it coming. Scene 4. The fire and the convenient absence. Approx. 600 words. It was Thursday morning, my usual trip into town. Supplies, mail, gas, and a cup of the world's worst coffee at the Sinclair station just for routine's sake. I always left by 8 and made it back by noon. That day I took the scenic loop on the way back. Something in me needed more quiet than usual. I was about 15 minutes from the cabin when my cell phone buzzed in the cup holder. Amanda's name lit the screen. "Dad," her voice cracked. "There's a fire. At the cabin. It's bad. I was just driving by and saw smoke." I pulled the truck hard onto the shoulder, gravel flying. "Say that again." "I saw smoke. Called 911. The fire department's already there. Jason showed up too. He was checking on you, I think. You need to get back. Now." She hung up. I floored it, tires howling. My chest felt like it was being squeezed by a vice. When I turned off the main road onto the dirt track toward the cabin, I could already see the plume, thick and black, rising behind the trees like a funeral flag. The cabin was gone by the time I got there. Fire trucks were parked all across the yard. Smoke hung low in the air, thick and acrid. The scent hit me like a punch. Burnt pine, scorched metal, ash. Amanda ran toward me, makeup streaked, clutching her phone like it was some kind of lifeline. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I was headed into town and saw smoke just above the trees. I pulled in and called right away." Jason stood a few feet back, arms crossed, reeking of beer and smoke. "I just happened to be driving by. Thought I'd check in." Then Amanda pulls in and yells at me to call the fire department. I didn't say anything. I just stared at what used to be my home. The walls were black skeletons. The roof had collapsed in on itself. The stone chimney still stood, oddly untouched, like a monument. One of the firefighters came up. "You, Mr. Braddock?" I nodded. "We contained it before it hit the tree line, but I'm real sorry. Total loss. Best guess is electrical. Maybe faulty wiring sparked near your study. Caught on something dry." I shook my head. "I redid all the wiring 5 years ago, after Carol died. Hired a contractor out of Missoula, all code compliant." The fire chief squinted at me. "That right?" "Yeah, the study." He nodded. "That's where it looks like it started. Wasn't much we could do by the time we got here." I glanced toward Amanda. Her eyes dropped instantly. Jason scratched at his neck, suddenly fascinated with the ground. That study held my safe, my records, my maps and trust documents, my fallback plans. Most of it was stored digitally too, backups Rafe held, but still, the timing. Amanda stepped closer, voice soft. "Maybe this is a sign, Dad. Maybe it's time. You can't stay here now. And the center, we've already checked. They've got a room ready. It's safe, warm, people you can talk to." I looked at her, then at Jason, who avoided my eyes. I said nothing. I walked closer to the rubble, the charred beams, the collapsed roofline. The smell of loss was heavy, but beneath it was something sharper. Not grief, not even anger. Clarity. They stood behind me, probably waiting for tears, for a breakdown. But I just looked down at the blackened remains of everything Carol and I built, and quietly to myself, I said, "All right, you made your move. Let's see how well you play the rest of the game." Scene 5, forced into the safe option, approx. 550 words. I didn't fight them, not right away. By Saturday morning, Amanda had everything lined up. Brochures, intake forms, a packed duffel I hadn't asked her to touch. She kept using the word temporary, like it was supposed to sound comforting. I just nodded along like a man with no better options. The Veterans Center was about 30 minutes east, nestled on a wooded lot outside Helena. Clean, modern, too quiet, smelled like antiseptic and cafeteria food. It had a nice lobby with gas fireplace logs and glossy pamphlets on every table. A place built to look like freedom while politely erasing your autonomy. Jason hauled in a single box of my things, mostly flannels and books. Amanda followed behind, clipboard in hand, guiding me through check-in like I was being admitted to a hotel instead of a place they hoped I'd die quietly in. A nurse named Jenna led me to my room. She was young, maybe late 20s, with tired eyes and a practiced smile. "This one's got a window facing west," she said. "You'll catch the sunset if you're lucky." I looked around. Bed, dresser, a desk with a chair, and a small private bathroom. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't home. "Thanks," I said. I waited until Amanda left, until she gave me one last tight hug and reminded me she was just a call away, before I shut the door and sat on the bed. The mattress was too soft. The air smelled like lemon cleaner. I didn't unpack. Over the next few days, I played the part. I shuffled slowly through the halls, nodded politely during meals, and smiled vaguely when staff tried to chat. To the other residents, I was just another old soldier with bad knees and nowhere else to go. That suited me fine. Amanda dropped by twice that week, all fake smiles and thinly veiled control. Jason came once, hungover, asking for gas money like it was nothing. I gave him $30 and a stare that lasted longer than the cash. But by Wednesday, the angle shifted. Amanda sat across from me in the common room, legs crossed, voice sugary. "Dad, the center says they're missing some paperwork." "The financial part." I raised an eyebrow. "Is that so?" She smiled wider. "They need someone listed as authorized. Power of attorney, just for now, in case anything comes up, like billing or medical stuff." I said, sipping my tea. "Funny how that wasn't in the intake packet." "Well, things change," she chirped. Jason texted later that night. "Hey man, just sign whatever Mandy needs. She's handling everything." The next day, Amanda showed up with a folder, legal-looking pages and a pen already clicked. "This just makes things easier," she said softly. "We'll take care of it all. You won't have to worry about a thing." I took the papers, flipped through them slowly, pretending I didn't already know what was there. "I'll think on it," I said. She frowned. "There's really no reason to wait. I said I'll think on it." Her jaw tightened, but she stood. "Of course, Dad. Just let me know." I smiled after she left, a small, patient smile. They thought they'd won, that the fire had scared me into surrender, that this place, clean walls, soft lights, controlled schedules, had broken me. Let them think that. The longer they underestimated me, the more they'd reveal. And I wasn't finished teaching yet. Scene 6, the seed of revenge and a new ally, approx. 600 words. I met Casey Alton 2 weeks into my stay at the Veterans Center. She wasn't like the others. Most staff moved around us old-timers like we were porcelain dolls or oversized toddlers. But Casey, maybe 25, ponytail, thick glasses, sharp eyes, saw me, really saw me. It started with a look during breakfast. She caught me ignoring the scrambled eggs and scribbling numbers on a napkin with a dull pencil. I saw her pause, squint, and then pretend not to notice. Next morning, she brought me a proper notepad and said, "You look like you were doing more than Sudoku." I said nothing, just nodded, but I took the pad. Later that week, I asked her what she did before working here. She told me she used to run operations for a nonprofit, but her dad got sick, so she moved back home. "This job pays less," she said, "but it matters more." That's when I asked if she could keep a secret. The next day I handed her a number written on the back of a prescription receipt. "Call this man. Tell him Miles says we're green-lighted. Don't say anything else. His name's Rafe Garrison." She didn't ask a single question, just nodded, folded the paper, and walked off like I'd asked her to bring me tea. That night, she left a note in my drawer. "He's expecting your call tomorrow. Private line, 4 p.m. I'll make sure no one interrupts." She didn't just follow instructions. She understood why they mattered. I told her about the fire, about the documents Amanda and Jason didn't know I had backups for. I told her about Braddock Timber Holdings and Plan C. And when I explained what I needed, discrete space, help arranging meetings, access to a laptop without center restrictions, she didn't hesitate. 2 days later, she slipped me a key to the unused conference room down the hall and whispered, "Use it after 9. I keep the security logs. Nobody'll know." Through her, I got a message to Rafe. We set up a secure Zoom call with encrypted files. Over a series of late-night sessions, we drew up the next steps. Deeds were transferred, titles renamed, eviction notices drafted under corporate aliases they'd never trace back to me. The trap was taking shape. Casey also introduced me to Lily Tran, her college roommate's cousin, a journalism grad student working on a project about financial abuse among the elderly. Lily drove down the next weekend, notebook in hand, wide-eyed but smart. I told her everything, off the record for now, but with permission to publish later, after it was done. We documented everything: the sudden push for control, the suspicious timing of the fire, the pressure to sign away power of attorney. Lily took careful notes, asked sharp questions, and recorded backup audio on a tiny lapel mic pinned to my flannel. Then came the final step. Rafe sent over a revised will. I signed it under Casey's watch, with Lily present as second witness. Amanda and Jason were no longer beneficiaries. Instead, the estate, through Braddock Timber, would fund wilderness preservation and community rehab programs. They'd still be eligible for a conditional inheritance, but only if they fulfilled specific terms. 5 years of volunteer work at Braddock Ridge Youth Rehab, a program I'd been quietly funding through a nonprofit shell, full admission of their scheme, documented and submitted to the local ethics board, and no early payouts. You want legacy. Earn it? Casey sat across from me afterward, hands folded. "So, that's it. You're cutting them off completely." I looked down at the signed will. "Not cutting, correcting." She leaned back. "You think they'll do it? Volunteer, admit what they did." "I think," I said slowly, "they'll panic, then they'll beg. Then they'll do whatever it takes to get their hands on something they never understood." Casey smiled. "Remind me never to get on your bad side." I smiled back. "Just don't burn my house down." She nodded. "Fair enough." Scene 7. The evictions and collapse. Approx 550 words. The first notice hit Amanda on a Monday morning. She called the number listed in confusion, then panic, then fury. The voice on the other end, a polite young woman from Braddock Timber Holdings, LLC, informed her that the land lease for her clinic's property had been terminated due to non-compliance with usage terms. She had 60 days to vacate. The woman explained the terms had been updated in the most recent ownership transfer. Amanda had never heard of the company. She hung up without saying thank you. Jason got his letter the same day, hand-delivered by a process server. It was a one-page document, but the red stamp at the top said it all. Notice to vacate. 30 days. He lived above the auto shop, a place he always bragged about getting cheap from a buddy. He'd never questioned who owned the land beneath it. Now he knew. Amanda showed up at the Veterans Center 2 days later, storming through the lobby in heels that clicked like accusations. I was sitting by the window reading when I heard her voice from the front desk, raised and strained. "I need to speak to my father. Now." I closed my book and waited. She approached me like a lawyer, ready to present a case, her jaw locked, eyes wild. "You don't know anything about Braddock Timber Holdings, right?" I raised an eyebrow. "No idea what that is." "You sure?" she hissed. "Because the land under my clinic. The one I leased for 10 years. They say it's owned by that company now. Same with Jason's apartment." I sipped my tea. "Must be a big company." Her mouth opened, then closed. "You're lying." I shrugged. "Can't help you there." She stared at me, unsure whether to scream or cry. Then she turned and marched out. The next day, Jason called Casey from the front desk, slurring his words through a voicemail. "Tell the old man he wins, all right. Tell him he can have the damn land, just Tell him to stop." I never returned the call. That week, Amanda tried reaching the CEO of Braddock Timber, which was technically a shell held in trust by Rafe Garrison's firm. No names on the website, no office to visit. Just P.O. boxes and layers of paper trails stretching through 3 counties. She left 6 voicemails, got 1 emailed reply. All lease negotiations must go through legal counsel. On Friday, I found Casey sitting on the bench outside the rec room, arms crossed. She looked pissed. "I overheard Amanda talking to Nurse Jenna," she said. "She asked if you had any paperwork stored in your room. Financial stuff. Something about guardianship filings." I didn't react, just leaned back and looked at the ceiling. "She's getting desperate," Casey said. I nodded. "Desperation makes people sloppy." Casey's eyes narrowed. "You want me to report it?" "Not yet." Jason showed up that night, tried to sneak into the center drunk. Security escorted him out before he could get past the lobby. I watched from the second-floor window as he staggered toward his truck, kicked the bumper, and peeled out, gravel flying behind him like smoke from a bad decision. Amanda called again the next morning. This time, she didn't yell. Her voice was soft, tired. I need to understand what's going on. You've never done this before." I didn't answer. She wasn't ready for the truth yet, but she was getting close. Scene 8, the confrontation and the confession, approx. 600 words. They showed up together, which was rare. Amanda's knock was sharper than usual, and Jason lingered a full step behind her in the hallway, eyes red and jaw tight, like he'd bitten into something sour. Casey gave me a subtle nod from her station as they entered the lounge. "I'll keep the hallway clear," she whispered as she passed. I sat in the same corner chair I used every afternoon, book on my lap, glasses hanging low on my nose. They didn't sit. Amanda stayed standing, arms crossed. Jason leaned against the wall, one boot tapping the tile floor like it owed him money. Amanda spoke first. "We know it was you." I closed the book. "You'll have to be more specific." Jason stepped forward, fists clenched. "The evictions. The trust. Braddock Timber Holdings. It's you, isn't it? You own the damn thing." I didn't answer, just looked between the two of them. Amanda exhaled sharply. "We didn't come here to fight. We came to talk." I nodded toward the 2 empty chairs across from me. "Then sit down and try it." They did. There was a silence, thick, hesitant, before Jason finally blurted, "Look, we didn't mean for things to go this far." Amanda leaned forward. "We were worried about you. At first, but yes." "Okay, yes, we talked about selling the land, about convincing you to move out. But we didn't cause the fire." I raised my eyebrows. "Didn't you?" Jason shook his head. "I swear. I drink too much, I screw up plenty, but I didn't torch the place." Amanda's voice was hoarse. "You think we'd do that? Burn the house we grew up in? The one Mom?" She stopped herself. "No, we didn't. But when it happened, we thought maybe it was an opportunity." I leaned back slowly. "So your plan was to push me into a facility and sign the rest of my life away with a clipboard and a smile?" Neither of them answered. They didn't need to. "I know you didn't start the fire," I said finally, "because someone else did. A salvage dealer from Deer Lodge used to run scrap up near my ridge. He got pinched for breaking and entering last week. Confessed to setting the fire, thought the cabin was empty, looking to strip copper, said he panicked when it lit." Amanda blinked. Jason's jaw dropped slightly. "Then why did I let you stew in guilt?" I finished for him. "Because even if you didn't strike the match, you were waiting to profit from the ashes." They sat frozen. "You came at me like vultures," I continued. "Swooped in with a cake I couldn't eat, and smiles that didn't reach your eyes. You played nice long enough to get the paperwork in front of me. And when that didn't work, you tried pressure, guilt, manipulation." Amanda wiped at her cheek. "We were wrong." Jason leaned forward. "We screwed up." "You didn't just screw up," I said quietly. "You failed a test of character." Amanda looked at me then, really looked. "I kept telling myself it was justified," she said, "that we were helping you. And all the while," I said, "you were helping yourselves." Jason dropped his head into his hands. "We thought you had nothing. Just the land, the house. We didn't know you were hiding all this." I shook my head. "I wasn't hiding. You just never looked past what you wanted. Amanda leaned back in the chair, deflated. Is there any way to fix this? I didn't speak right away. I let the weight of their question hang in the air like smoke. When I finally stood, they both looked up, bracing for judgment. You'll have a chance, I said, voice even, but you won't like the terms. Then I walked away, leaving them there, sitting in the truth, finally. Scene 9, a deal for redemption. Approx. 550 words. I met them in the courtyard just after lunch. Casey had reserved the space, said the weather would be decent, and that I might want the fresh air. Amanda and Jason sat on the bench like two kids waiting outside the principal's office. Jason's hair was slicked back, like he'd tried to clean up. Amanda wore sunglasses even though it was overcast. Guilt, I suppose, didn't like eye contact. I brought a manila envelope with me, sat down across from them, slow and deliberate. You asked if this could be fixed, I said. So here's the fix. Jason leaned forward. We'll do whatever. I held up a hand. No more talking, just listening. I slid the envelope across the table. Amanda stared at it for a beat, then opened it. Her eyes scanned the pages. Jason leaned over her shoulder. What is this? She asked softly. It's your way back in, I said. But not to my money, to my trust. Jason frowned. You mean, you want any part of the estate, any claim to Braddock timber. You'll need to earn it, starting now. Amanda swallowed. How? It's you. You'll both report to the Braddock Ridge Wilderness Center. I've donated heavily to it over the years. Rehabilitation work, wilderness therapy, youth mentorship. You'll live there, work there, 5 years, no shortcuts, no salary, just room, board, and labor. Jason sat back. You want us to dig ditches in the woods. I want you to contribute to something you once tried to exploit, I said. You'll work under the same nonprofit your mother and I helped build before she passed. Amanda looked pale. And if we say no, I shrugged. Then you walk away with nothing. I've already signed the final version of my will. You're excluded unless you meet the conditions in that document. Jason rubbed his face. You're serious. As a heart attack. Amanda flipped to the second page, her hands shaking now. You want us to admit it, publicly. That's right, I said. You'll stand in front of the Missoula Community Ethics Council next month and read a joint statement. The truth. You'll admit to coercion, manipulation, and your attempt to seize financial control of my assets under false pretenses. That's humiliating, Amanda whispered. No, I said. That's accountability. They were both silent for a long time. Finally, Amanda closed the folder. 5 years, no pay, no inheritance until after. That's correct. Jason stared down at the pavement. This is a setup. This is mercy, I said. You were raised better. Somewhere along the way, you lost that compass. This is how you find it again. Amanda's voice was small. Did Mom? Would she have wanted this? I looked up at the trees, the wind barely moving the leaves. She would have wanted you to know what it means to rebuild something, not just inherit it. Amanda looked at Jason, then back at me. All right, we'll do it. Jason didn't speak. He just nodded once, slow and defeated. I stood. You start next Monday. You'll be supervised, evaluated, and I'll be watching. They left without another word. Casey stepped out from the doorway behind me and handed me a thermos of coffee. Well, she said, that was brutal. I took a sip. No, I said, glancing up at the gray sky. That was parenting. Scene 10. Legacy and peace. Approx. 600 words. A month later, the cabin's ashes were finally cleared. The land was bare now, quiet and open, like it was waiting for something new to grow. Rafe handled the permitting. Casey coordinated the community meeting, and Braddock Timber Holdings funded the whole project. Anonymously, of course. The official name would be the Carol Braddock Memorial Trail System. 4 miles of footpath through the forest she used to walk every morning with me, rain or shine. The town approved it without hesitation. Amanda and Jason were there the day we broke ground. Jason wore work gloves and a sun-faded hoodie. His hair was shaggy again, but his eyes were clearer. Amanda had tied her hair back in a no-nonsense ponytail, her fancy ring gone, replaced by a dirt-streaked water bottle clipped to her belt. They didn't speak much that day, not to me, not to each other, but they worked, dug holes, hauled stones, hauled kids too. The rehab center had taken in its first batch of wayward teens that week. I watched Amanda gently redirect a boy trying to ditch shoveling duty, and I saw it. Something real. They were earning it. Back at the Veterans Center, I'd fallen into a rhythm. Mornings with Casey over black coffee, afternoons teaching chess to some of the younger residents. One of them, Malik, had a mind like a steel trap. Evenings were quiet, peaceful, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel watched. I felt still. My granddaughter, Ellie, Jason's girl, started coming around on weekends. 17, bright, curious. She asked questions about her dad I didn't sugarcoat. Told her the truth, but gently. She liked Casey immediately. The three of us would sit under the oak in the courtyard some Saturdays and talk about anything but the past. Sometimes Lily stopped by with updates on her story. She'd landed an interview with a regional magazine, said the editor wanted to title it When Control Becomes Care, the Quiet Epidemic of Financial Elder Abuse. I gave her my blessing, with one condition, no names. The story wasn't about revenge. It was about a lesson. One warm afternoon, I walked outside with an old photo in my jacket pocket, sat under the same tree I always did, watching the breeze stir the leaves overhead. In the photo, Carol was laughing, her hand on my shoulder, her eyes squinting into the sun. That was the year we bought the last parcel of land, the one Amanda's clinic used to sit on. I held the picture gently and whispered, "They finally understand." Behind me, I heard laughter. Casey and Ellie, bickering over whose turn it was to walk the center dog. A pudgy retriever named Boomer. From the distance, the buzz of construction. The trail system taking shape under Amanda and Jason's watch. Legacy wasn't a check or a title. It wasn't something you left behind. It was something you lived long enough to watch change the people who needed it most. I leaned back in the chair, letting the late sun warm my face. Carol would have been proud, not because of what they lost, but because of what they found through it. And as for me, I wasn't waiting anymore. I was watching, guiding, remembering. And for the first time in years, I felt whole.